landlord that you're not going to like me after. Also, none of this is actually my opinion. This is just how I'm selling something here. This is a sales pitch, guys. So, so it's, oh my God, they overpaid like idiots and try to get it below the 10 million, right? If you don't think that's possible, maybe you bought it in July for 10 million and you've already repaired one building. And so the value should really be like 15 at this point, and they're assessing you at 11, then maybe you let, sleeping lions, still. So it is something you have to make a business decision around. And part of that decision should involve someone who actually does these all the time, because they'll know whether or not it's worth the try, right? If you bought it in November and you haven't even applied for a single permit yet, and we can get condition photos showing that you got a complete junker, then, that's going to be a bit of a different story. But one thing I will say is you want to preserve evidence. So I tell these people, this is true for commercial, residential, anything. Take a photo before you make a repair. That's the photo I want to see. Another thing that's really important is that in Texas, the assessment day is January 1st. It's the value on January 1st. These CADs, and I go to their yearly continued education. I go every year so that I can hear what they're talking about. Out loud, they've said, oh yeah, we know it's January 1st, but we'll look into March. Oh, so we know what the law is, but we're going to ignore it because it doesn't favor our position. So I hit hard. This is January 1st. This is January 1st. This is January 1st. The law says January 1st. The law says January 1st. I don't care if these people are willing to break the law. I am not. The law says January 1st. So what matters is how it looks on January 1st, what the condition is on January 1st, what the value is on January 1st. If it burns down on January 2nd, you might be able to use that. Let's be honest. That first week of January, maybe even the first month.
I think that's some killer value she just added right there. And I think the question going through anybody in the audience's mind, there's got to be two. One is, how do I get more of this value? The other thing is, how do I meet more people like this? So I'm going to pass it over to Angel and say, I don't know if you want to talk about the subscription or Marvelous Mondays first, but I think we should talk about both, but go for it.
All right. Well, I will talk about Marvelous Mondays first, because that one happens every Monday. We meet every Monday at noon Eastern, and it's a great group of people, 25 to 40, super laid back, super knowledgeable syndicators. And we just have a really great time talking about real estate stuff. We talk about kind of everything, but the real estate stuff is cool too. So that's a really great place to meet other people who are active in the field right now, whether passively or on the GP side. And so again, it's just a really great place to meet. As for the subscription, what you're going to get is a ton of content. Right now, it is still only about $20 a month, and you get every summit that we've done, every presentation from those summits, and it is a massive amount of information. And like I said earlier, you really get to, from the very first summit to this past summit in March, you see a growth pattern. And so the topics really become more intricate, more detailed, more applicable. And yes, the first summit is very applicable and intricate and everything too, but you see more of a trajectory of growth and how things have changed over the last 4 years. And so that's why the subscription is really awesome, and you get a lot for what you're going to pay. So it's a really great investment.
I completely agree. And I really love being able to share little bits of these presentations to everybody every Friday. But because I'm a tease, I love not giving all of it. So that's why we always cut these presentations at 45 minutes in, so that there's still more to catch. So let's keep continuing on. This is the REI Rocks Review. We're here every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern, reviewing these different presentations on commercial real estate, the mindset, the life of being a commercial real estate investor / syndicator, and other types of investors, basically figuring out your future. But this presentation is with Lauren Cadillac, the Dallas real estate attorney. Let's continue.
It was a burn down kind of situation. But if you are talking like I started filing for permits on January 15th, and they're now trying to say that those permits are reflective of a higher value, because on January 15th, that's not January 1st. You didn't know the permits were going to be applied for. So no. And that's why you hire a professional, because we know those rules, and we can say things like, I think you're a little off there.
I love it. I love it. And so back in the fall summit, we had you on with a bunch of other attorneys. And one of the things I got two things coming off of what you just said there. The first one was the difference between a CPA and a tax attorney. You had a great way of putting the difference. And just to put it into perspective for anybody in the audience, the issue that I ran into when I had to move my business from Taiwan to Canada was I turn around to the attorney and they'd say, ask the accountant. And I turn around to the accountant and they'd say, oh, turn around to the attorney and ask them. And it just, everybody seemed to be trying to shirk their responsibility. And at the risk of repeating ourselves, I still love it if you'd, shed some light on that one again real quick there, Lauren.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to start first. My dear friend Kevin, I saw him on here. He is my friend and I love him and I'm sure he has a sense of humor. I'm sure of it. However, he is the exception to the rule, which is CPAs don't have a sense of humor. When you go to law school, you learn how to argue both sides of a topic, right? One day I might be making this argument, and then the next day, or even that afternoon, I could be making the opposite argument for a different client, right? I could be arguing against what I was arguing that morning. I actually love it when that happens because I can steal stuff from the other people's pleadings, and then I don't have to do as much research. It's fantastic. So, saves my clients a lot of money too. All right. The thing is the CPA sees the black letter of the law, and that's that. Period. But as an attorney, I don't believe that the black letter of the law is actually black letter. So I play and live in kind of a gray area, right? I'm arguing both sides of the law. It really just depends on the judge's mood that day, what the law really is. And, quite frankly, we see that somebody has not yet been indicted, though we know he broke the law. So I don't know that necessarily our laws really even mean anything at this point in our country's history. However, a CPA would not feel that way, okay? And I'm going to give you my best example. For me, when I work with real estate investors, I always use a series LLC. The reason is, if I get sued in Texas and all my assets are in that LLC, the person who gets a judgment against me can go for all my assets in that LLC. But if it's a series LLC, each of my assets is considered to be in its own. So if you sue me on Series A, you're only getting what's in Series A. You're not getting in Series 14. You're not nothing. That's it. So it's like free insurance, right? Plus you pay one Secretary of State fee to register that first LLC, and then you don't have to pay again. You can have as many LLCs as you want. They get EINs. Woo, woo, woo. I have a bunch of videos on YouTube about them if you want to know more. I'm not going to go over too much. Series LLCs have never been looked at by the Supreme Court. To me, that means opportunity. That means I can do whatever I want with it, however I want to, until I got to go to court or until the court says otherwise, right? And even if I'm the one who has to go to court, I have the unique opportunity of telling the Supreme Court how it should work. Here's what the precedent should look like, right? Because there is no precedent. CPAs don't see things that way. That's not how they look at anything. I think, I don't know. I don't believe they look at anything that way. That's the way a lawyer sees things, right? It's not necessarily cut and dry. And so you need your CPA. I love my CPA. That man does math for me. And I know when that math goes to IRS, that math was done right, damn it. But when he tells me things like, oh, we should not have this in this trust, then I say, well, I have all these other reasons for this trust. And he goes, oh, okay, you know what, you're right. I am right because I'm a lawyer and I understand the law, right? And he's a CPA, he understands the math under the law. So when you're doing something like multifamily investing, I think you need both. I think you need a CPA because they're going to keep you on that black and white and they're going to do your math and you're not going to find a lawyer who's great at math. And if you do, I wouldn't trust them, probably not a great lawyer. So, then you can have the lawyer who can give you the advice. What a lawyer's advice is how is this going to play out in front of a judge? That's really what matters when it comes to the law, right? Are you going to go to jail? Some people can do things that would send others to jail. That has to be that's something, but a CPA can't tell you that, a lawyer can. I know how this judge rules in these cases. I know how well this would get by in a Dallas court. So it's not as concise and as funny as the last time I said it, Dan, but there you go.
No. That's fantastic. But you brought up one legal term, and one of the things, especially because of my experience teaching languages, I find way too many people are willing to do is just let words pass by them and just, assume they know what it means. And so this should just take a second though. So we're talking about taxes, and that means if you're really on the wrong side, then it's not going to necessarily be criminal for quite some time. So one of these terms, I'll just list off the terms that I want to make sure, just so that people understand the workflow of getting in trouble. So the first one would be, I imagine that you're getting investigated. And I imagine that if you're getting investigated, there might be like more than one way, just conceptually, one where like you're getting investigated and you have no idea what's going on. But I'm not sure if they have some sort of alternative where it's like, hey, we're investigating you, so you watch out, sort of that thing. And then the next step when you're involved in any criminal activity would be you actually get like arrested or detained. I imagine, so there's a warrant involved. And then the word that you did use, which is getting indicted. And can you make sure that people understand, those different steps of, and you can tailor
kind
it
of,
for
but not really.
what you're up to.
I don't do criminal defense because I don't want to work with criminals. And like something like 89% of the time people are guilty, and I don't want them showing up at my house and murdering me. So I can tell you, I don't know. I'm pretty confident that if the IRS is investigating you, because it's pretty confident they send you multiple letters. I don't think there's any surprise there. Also, I can tell you without a doubt that if any federal agency is coming for you, they are going to have a perfectly sealed case. Like, you're going to have very hard time poking holes in it, but you should do that because it's your constitutional right. Just know that you're probably going to be serving time in federal prison. Okay. I mean, the feds come for you, and you probably should be talking plea deal. You know, we know you probably did. Very like, unlike.
And my takeaway from that was, you know, how people say it's like, well, you don't need to make a federal case about it. And I think maybe this is where it comes from. It's because, like, if there is a federal case against you, you're already like, you know, say your goodbyes for a few years, I guess. It's crazy stuff.
That you didn't do it. Okay. Unless you're a rapper and they use some weird lyric in your song. But us normal folks, first of all, don't do illegal shit. Okay. Don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat. Very easy.
Okay, I should clarify that Lauren just said, but she actually meant. So there you
go. That being said, there's so many things that are illegal, like spitting on the sidewalk and things like that. That really, Americans are at risk of getting arrested really at any moment, always. So we're not really the land that we claim to be. Once you are arrested, my only advice to you is shut your mouth. Don't say a damn word. Tell them I want my lawyer, and shut your freaking mouth. I don't care how innocent you think you are. I don't care how great you think your story is. Y'all watch these people. Well, she's not crying enough. First of all, how do you know how someone should react when they walk up on their dead husband? Okay. Have you seen your dead husband? No, none of us know that, right? But we all have some kind of opinion. Oh, well, they did it. No, if you are detained is the same as arrested in the United States. If you are detained, you shut your mouth and you ask for an attorney, and you don't say another thing.
Is part of that because the attorney actually has the ability to, you know, like get a fact like slightly inaccurate, you know, like if I said I had a third nipple and you were like, oh yeah, it's on his left side. No, it's on the right side. It's like, okay, yeah, like that's okay for an attorney to get one individual fact wrong. But if I'm talking about something, they're going to assume that it's factual, you know, so like it's like, does that make any sense at all?
No, the reason you want an attorney there is because police are human, and humans lie to get ahead. The more people they bust, the better they do, and the further they get promoted, and so on. The Supreme Court itself has said that policing is a competitive business, and therefore we cannot trust the words that come out of the police mouth. That is in Supreme Court. That is the law of this land. Do not trust the police, period. I work with the government every day. My friend who works for the city calls me one day, and she says, come with me to watch a SWAT team drug bust. You better believe I went to see the SWAT team drug bust, okay? Do not for 1 minute think Lauren Cadillac did not show up early for that shit. So we find this perfect parking spot. From our perfect parking spot, we see these apartments. This is where the drug bust is going to take place. And we determine the drug bust is going to be on this side of the apartments and that we have the best view because we see several drug dealers, okay? We watch this lookout hanging out on the patio. We've seen the wire. It doesn't take much to deduce what's going on, right? So we're waiting. And then we hear, and the drug dealers disperse. My lookout runs off. It was my lookout who did the, then we see the police go to the other side of the building. When they got there, the door was open. They didn't even have to bust it down. And they just found the dope laying there. And the guy was like, I don't live here. And they couldn't arrest him. So how many thousands of my dollars was spent to bust absolutely nobody? And tell me that that's okay, that those people are going to have any power in your life. So you should not never, ever, at one moment, ever trust your government, period. And if that's not the greatest example of our money being spent in the dumbest way ever, I'm literally moving from the city of Dallas after seeing that because I can't deal with my money being spent that way.
Wow.
Not when I have tires explode over potholes. So no, we're not going to do that.
That's really intense. Wow. Holy
moly.
It
is. It's very intense. So y'all stay away from the government. If they're trying to talk to you, make sure a lawyer's there. That's why you need a lawyer there.
Excellent. All right. So the next thing you were saying was about basically how when you represent a buyer, then you would mention all the things that are wrong with it and how they're dummies and they shouldn't have paid that much and all that kind of stuff. Are you able to comment on getting an engineering team in and doing a cost segregation study? Because what they generally do is they find all the things that are messed up and they can accelerate the depreciation, basically saying like, oh, well, you know, this deck, you know, it only ever had like 20 years in it and like 12 of those are already gone. So even though I paid for a deck that's in good shape, the actual value of the property is this much less as a result of that. So would you work hand in hand with cost segregation people? Is that something you can comment on?
Oh, absolutely. If someone had a cost segregation and they could provide me documentation that was just like what you outlined, that would be a dream client. Really, if I had a business that even had an inventory of this.
So there you go. So that's a good call. So I think that's a good time to mention the importance of having a big network and especially ones that people who really know what they're doing, people you can trust, people who can put you in the right direction. And for that, I want to talk about the mastermind. But instead of me talking about it, I can just put Jason on the spot and put some triangles on my face here. So we got our introductory meeting happening in a week for our summer cohort. Here's the little thing for that. Jason, you want to say a few things about the mastermind?
Yeah, I will. We are starting our next cohort for the second half of the year next week. So if you haven't already, you need to get in quickly because it's not going to be available again until January. And what it is we collectively as a group, we limit it to 12 people total. So we have a close-knit, intimate group, and we provide each other direction. We support each other. We help each other when we're struggling. We hold each other accountable. We are all entrepreneurs who want to grow. And so we make sure everybody's growing, because as I'm helping you, you're also helping me, and a rising tide lifts all ships. So if this interests you, then you need to sign up. I think Dan can, I guess, scan the QR code or go to the link here. And we look forward to talking with you. So anything else I miss?
Yeah, I don't think you missed anything. I do want to contrast it with some of the other masterminds that are out there. Hopefully, you can watch this on replay as well. You can pause and scan that QR code that was up on the screen. But there are other people who call their groups masterminds. There's some where it's guru based, which is basically somebody's up at the front talking about how rich and cool they are and how you can be rich and cool like them too. But at the same time, they're generally not providing much of any value, and maybe just boosting a little bit of energy, as opposed to a peer-based mastermind where everybody is in as more or less equals, even though we have our own expertise. And so, we know who is the authority in the group for this or that or the other thing. So I think it's really important to have a group like that. And this mastermind, it really is different, even though I see that it's becoming more and more popular. Once again, I know that like last year, I wasn't hearing that many. A lot of people are putting out their first masterminds, and this is not our first mastermind. So that's why we really have that proof of concept all put together. But we only have another 5 minutes, so let's get a little bit more of this presentation going. This is the REI Rocks Review. We're here every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. This is Lauren Cadillac talking about Texas taxes. Let's do it.
Things they own. That would be a dream. I guess like maybe because I grew up in a compliance area, we have an inventory and a code for everything. Like every piece of furniture is inventoried and so on. And if you don't have that in your business, you should be a little embarrassed right now, but when we hang up, you can go do it. It takes, an hour maybe, unless you own a bunch of stuff, and then it's gonna take a long time. And yeah, if I had an analysis like that to hand to them, absolutely. That would be huge, particularly when you get in front of the board. So in Texas, we can do these informals, and then we can do these boards. And the boards are made up of people who worked in the real estate industry, but they're now retired, and they're volunteers. And so they're there like 6 months a year for 2 years. And they love stuff like that. Like you give them something like that, and it doesn't matter what the county says. You won. You're gonna win. I know, like having worked with them, I know the kind of photos they like. I use the words they like to hear. You start to really get familiar with that. But I can tell you, a cost segregation analysis that has that kind of information is going to be a winner. Period. Yeah, and the government.
I guess it's another good spot to pause, because there are rumors. I don't feel confident in anything I've seen that it's 100% confirmed, but it does look like the 100% bonus depreciation that was supposed to be phased out at the end of last year, it looks like it is coming back. And what that's all about is if you understand how corporate finances work, you have the seed capital to start it up. So you start your business with your 20K, 30K, 50K, 150K, whatever it is. And then you're allowed to tread water at that amount with no tax. So what that means is you get a certain amount of revenue putting you over. But if you get a certain amount of losses, even if they're only on paper, they can cancel each other out. Now, of course, we're not financial advisors. We're not lawyers or whatever. So I don't want to, set you on the wrong direction as far as that goes. But these cost segregation analyses, they can save you a whole lot of money and make it so that some of your revenue it's not taxable just from offsetting with those losses. So let's continue.
And, your evidence is good enough, and you get to the CAD, and you have something like that, and the CAD goes, okay, we agree. We'll go with whatever, what they said. I have that quite often, actually, when I go to these. They agree with me, I would say, at least 75% of the time, because it's really not worth arguing. You got to look at them, cost-benefit analysis. How many people are actually showing up to participate in this process? It's certainly a lot more than it used to be, right? But it's maybe 1% of real estate owners in the whole state, right? So if they give me what my analysis showed, a discount of $200,000-300,000 based off of that, they're not really losing out. It's like $2,000. There's still Joe Blow, who's never commented, Sally Sue, who never protests. Like, they're still going to get their money, right? So if you can provide really strong and well put together evidence like that, that is definitely going to be favorable to you.
Excellent, excellent. So going to the chat here, I have one comment from somebody that I'm not going to name for reasons. They say theoretical numbers: buying for $10 million, previous taxes 10 years ramp up to 2.5 million. Now they are assessing at 8 million. So I'm not sure exactly what that means. I don't know if an alleged person wants to allegedly unmute and ask it some more.
That looks like they also are representing every lawyer on the call and talking about the prosecutor at the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I did not like that prosecutor. I did a video on that on YouTube if you want to check it out. Also, that judge is in charge of some other case that's been on recently, some stalker boyfriend, and the judge was really loony there. And in fact, that judge reminds me quite a bit of the type of judges that we're dealing with in Dallas. So he just doesn't really stick to the law, and he kind of does his own thing. And I know a lot of folks are really surprised to hear that, but that's what people do. So when we have people in charge of processes, this is what happens, right? So until the machines take over being judges, you're going to have to deal with people's personalities and moods.
Right. So maybe if we can get a thumbs up or a thumbs down sort of thing. I think what is trying to be said here is that if it was evaluated at 2.5 million for like 10 years or something, and then they suddenly boosted up to 8 million. Let's see if that came out there.
No, I am muted. You hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
So suppose you have a property, you bought it at 10 million. Since Texas is a non-disclosure state, they originally assessed it at 2.5 million, like year you bought it, and like the previous 10 years have only been increasing maybe 5% each year. And then the year you buy it, they say, oh, here, we're assessing it now at 8 million. So your taxes pretty much quadruple, but still less than if it was at full value. I guess this is when you come in and you make me look like a dumbass and say I way overpaid for it and I'm a slumlord and stuff like that.
Yep. And really, just so you know, that's only possible in commercial property. If we were talking about a house, you're screwed. You're lucky that they're not billing you what you paid. The year you buy it, you set the value, period, end of story. Can I get some more leeway on commercial? Yes. Can more be done in commercial? Absolutely, right? Do I have a chance to say that you were an idiot? I sure do. I say maybe he didn't check the tax rolls before he bought it. But also, just FYI, the Constitution of the state of Texas allows them to assess at market value. So if they found out you paid $10 million, they can come back and assess you at that, and you will not win in court. So when they have it below, you just say, oh, thank you, Jesus, and you move on with your life.
What a great place to end that off. We've got a doggy bag. I'll start the doggy bag. I don't usually start the doggy bag, the takeaways from the presentation. Me personally, I'm going to start saying Amsterdam, absolutely, like the caption said, just there as often as possible. That was fantastic. But Angel, Jason, who wants to start off with the takeaways from this presentation?
Amsterdam, absolutely. No, you definitely need to catch the full presentation. It was pretty good, and the only way to do that is through the subscription. The subscription will be doubling next month. So right now it's $17 a month. You can still get in. It's going up to $34. It's still not going to break your bank, but we do have more web storage for all the videos and content we have, and that price is going up. So that's what we're doing, is we're just trying to cover our overhead. It's still going to be a good deal regardless if it's 34 or 17. So just throwing that out there.
Yep. And I got some spicy content releasing about the dangers of other services, these coaching ones, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be coming out, and I'm doing it under my brand just because it might get messy. And so nothing I say ever represents Learn Capital or its subsidiaries or everything. I'm just a dipshit or whatever. Angel, what do you got for your takeaways?
I think it's really important to just know that there are ways out there for you to dispute your taxes. I think that there are many people that see it and they're like, well, I guess this is just what I do and this is what I'm gonna have to pay. And they don't understand that they can contest it. In residential, it gets a little different because like, I guess it's the same in commercial too, but when you dispute it, a lot of times, if you don't capture the dispute within a certain window, it doesn't apply to that year and you end up having to pay that bill anyway. But there are people out there like Lauren that can help you navigate that process. And she probably knows some secret way to get it applied to that year too that I don't know. So I think it's really important to realize that there are people out there that specialize in helping you when it comes to property taxes.
After all, she did write the book on it, so.
There you go. There you go. Yep. Yeah, that's it's one of those things. It's tough to it's I guess one of the things to summit is laziness does not pay. And so like if you ignore these assessment letters, it's costing you for real. But I'd argue more importantly, it's costing your investors. So if you're in this business, you're taking on investors, you're syndicating deals, that kind of stuff, and you're not contesting your taxes, you're not doing your job as a GP. You really need to make sure that you are cutting the expenses as much as you possibly can without reducing the benefits to the residents and the investors. And this is just one of the pieces of the puzzle. So I always appreciate having Lauren on. She's absolutely hilarious. Of course, like the more serious somebody is, the more I try to make them laugh at some point, and that includes CPAs. So I'm sure I've made a few CPAs laugh in my time, but maybe I'll be actually funny one of these days. But this has been the REI Rocks Review. I got to give you guys the rest of your weekend back. I always appreciate you joining us. And we are here at 11 a.m. Eastern every Friday reviewing all this different content. Do we have any other last words you want to say, or you just want to say goodbye, guys?
I'm ready to say goodbye. Have a good weekend, everybody, and we'll catch you on Monday at our Marvelous Monday meetup.
Be there. Meet lots of people. Good stuff. All right. Thanks. See ya.